What is good, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I'm going to be talking about the one and only NIO stock and what you should be looking after for the future. I'm also going to do a very in-depth analysis of NIO and do its comparison with the SPY and the QQQ in the market. Talk about what we could be watching for over the next 2 weeks for the markets and how this may affect NIO. Now, before I get started with anything, before I get into any more details, I do have to mention a couple of things real quick. Firstly, I'm not a financial planner, so don't take any of this as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. Not only benefits me, but the entire community as a whole. And the last thing is, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you're guaranteed up to 12 free stocks, each worth up to $2,000. And the best part is, any of these 12 free stocks could be a free Tesla share. It's a limited time offer. The offer ends in just 2 days. Check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. So, looking at the market, there is something very important I need to note about NIO. Right now, NIO is on the verge of potentially showing some signs of an uptrend because we did actually come down to about the $8.30 level. And then after that, we pushed up, we came down, and we are showing signs of making a higher low. Now, if that is the case and the market continues to pump, I am hoping that NIO starts to show some signs of strength and we see a big reversal from here. Now, NIO was coming down for reasons that was not necessarily its fault, because if you look at Tesla compared to NIO, very similar chart right here, except Tesla has been like more bullish than NIO overall, but the overall setup is still pretty similar. You can see how they do tend to compare with one another. It's just that NIO is lacking some strength for the short term, but I'm hoping this does change going forward. What is unpredictable about NIO is the fact that it is more affected by news involving China, such as the lockdowns that are still continuing in areas like Shanghai. So I'm still very cautious because of these. However, I'm not losing faith in the company based off everything else that's going on. NIO has strong fundamentals, and in the markets right now, we want to see this play out. The markets, they look like they want to continue to push up for the midterm rally, but how we continue it depends on the FOMC meeting that's coming up for next week on November 2nd. So please be very cautious. Let me just go over the possibilities in a couple of minutes. Let me just first go over this though. Looking at the price comparison between NIO and the SPY, you can see that they tend to be somewhat similar. At least most of the time, they are in very similar stages. And overall, NIO's price pairs ratio is starting to drop, which is a sign of weakness, but they are quite similar for the most part. You can see this drop right here on SPY. NIO came down a little bit later. Then the SPY started pushing up, and NIO is slowly starting to follow. So I'm hoping for a big follow through. We could also compare it to like the QQQ, for example. We could see another big comparison right here. It's also very similar. NIO had a rally before the QQQ during this time thanks to earnings. As the QQQ came down, NIO did follow a little bit afterwards, but now the QQQ is showing some signs of strength and starting to push up. NIO is yet to actually show signs of the big reversal, but it is still very possible to come. It's just that other kind of like external factors are affecting NIO. If we compare NIO and Tesla now, just real quick, they tend to be quite similar in styles. There were some moments where they run very similar to one another, but other moments where NIO is still lagging behind, at least for the short term. Now, looking at something else that's important, I wanted to talk about how NIO and the SPY kind of like relates to one another. What I want to do in this video now is talk about the trend on SPY and how this could affect NIO. So what I'm seeing is, if you look at this trend, the SPY has been respecting a broadening descending wedge, and you can draw it out like this. You will notice that there's a midline, an upper line, and a lower trend line, which could all be used to kind of encompass this price action. And let me first do this. Let me adjust my chart. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. Hold on. What's going on here? All right, that's a lot better. So I'm going to keep it smaller so you guys can see this. Using the blue line, a push to the midline tends to come. We get another kind of like resistance level at the midline, push to the upper trend line, test of the bottom trend line, midline test, bottom test. We have another midline test, kind of. We came down, then we broke to the top. You guys see that? We had another big drop after that. We came very close to the bottom, came to the midline, all the way back down to the bottom. Then we got another breakout similar to the March one that happened in August. We came down pretty hard since then. We retested the midline, we came down, and we recently got confirmation that we broke above it. So with our simple logic, you're going to tell yourself, okay, look at these moments. You will see We were at the upper trend line, we came down, we touched the midline, we came down, and eventually we broke to the upper trend line again. Look at this instance. We're at the upper trend line, we come down, we touch the midline, we come down, then we push all the way to the top again. What's happening right now? We touched the top, we came down, we didn't actually touch the lower trend line this time. We retested the midline area. See that? We touched it, we came down, now we're pumping up. So you would think we're going to rally all the way up and retest the upper trend line, hitting 412 on the SPY. Now, do I think that's going to happen? I think it's very possible and very likely thanks to the midterm rally I was talking about, but it's dependent on FOMC. Because remember, FOMC is coming up on the 2nd of November. If the Fed is like super hawkish, they say things the market does not want to hear, there are two main possibilities I'm going to be watching for. Let me draw them out for you. So let's close this. So the market's here. I anticipate more bullish price action for Monday and Tuesday, and this is what I'm going to be watching for. The two possibilities are the market is likely going to continue pushing up. We could see SPY approach the 400 level, very possible over the next few days. But where we go from there is dependent on FOMC. Okay? And maybe we stop at like 395. Let's just be a little bit more conservative and say 395 is the top. If FOMC comes and Powell is very hawkish, he says things the market does not like, he's very serious, the market could get a big reversal on November 2nd. All right, we could start to retest this trend line and come down like this. That's one risk. That's one of the main factors. However, that's not the only possibility. Okay, the second possibility is FOMC comes, but it's not that bad. The Fed is not extremely hawkish. Powell does not say too many like things that cause the market to drop. And because of midterms, we only get a small kind of like retracement, not a trend reversal. Those are two different things. This right here is like this example right here. This is like the red line that you're seeing. This is an example of a reversal. This right here would be kind of like a retracement on FOMC day, but then because of midterms, we continue to rally again like this for another like 2 weeks. And we touched the upper trend line around that 412 level before getting another potential rejection, right? So this would be the second possibility. Let's make this white. Let's actually change the color of this one to blue. All right, so the market is either going to push up a little bit more and then FOMC causes the big reversal and we come down on November 2nd, or if that's not the case, we continue to push up, approaching midterms and hitting that 412 area. I mean, could we go higher? I mean, it's possible, but given the current trend, it does not seem that likely, seeing that we keep getting rejected from this upper trend line. So that's what I'm going to be watching, guys. We could see SPY hit 412. What is more likely? It's about 50-50 at this point. It's dependent on FOMC because theoretically the Fed should be more hawkish. That doesn't guarantee that they are going to be as strict on policy or say the things the market doesn't like. All right. So what does this mean for NIO? Remember the chart I told you. I believe that there are two main possibilities for NIO. And NIO is going to follow this trend. So right here, this vertical line, this would be FOMC. Let me draw another one, another vertical line. This is going to be the midterm election date. So this one's midterms, this one's FOMC. One of these will likely, each of these are going to be very important. The first possibility is NIO starts to kind of rally, and I'm doing this on the daily so I can't be as meticulous. And we get kind of like a 2-day rally back to this like $11 range, which I think is likely going to come. And then after we get that big rally to the 11s, if the market's going to shift, if the Fed is not showing signs of a pivot, they're very hawkish, Powell causes the market to reverse, we could see NIO do something like this and start to come down over the next few weeks again, and the market could end up just getting hammered after FOMC. That's the first possibility, right? Just like that. Now, is this likely to happen? Given the previous trend, it doesn't look as likely because NIO is already kind of like oversold and it looks like we want to respect an uptrend. So what else is likely to happen, in my opinion, would be something like this. we do see a big pump to like that $11 range and we approach this gap area, we could get a big pump like this, maybe even higher depending on how much strength we have relative to the markets. NIO comes down a little bit thanks to FOMC. That could be what happens. But then we get a big breakout from there. FOMC does not affect the markets and NIO starts to pump to the 12s. And then for like the next like week after, NIO continues to go kind of parabolic to this 13 to 14 range like this. It's very possible approaching the midterm elections for 2 weeks, we go to the 13, maybe $14 level, maybe even higher, who knows? But I'm going to be more conservative and say like the 14 zone. And then we get a big rejection and NIO starts to kind of downtrend depending on announcements, what else happens. So that's essentially what I'm seeing for NIO. Either we're like really bullish past FOMC or FOMC causes the big reversal in the markets. I'm thinking we might see a move like this for NIO because this thing is starting to show signs of an uptrend. We're very oversold on the RSI. I could even pull up the RSI to give you guys an example. And I think the market might have a big effect on this because if Tesla and the market start pumping very hard, and if we don't get too many like negative articles about lockdowns, I think this is the main reason why NIO was red. Otherwise, it should be fine. I I think it's important to be very careful and watch this very carefully. So, anyways, guys, for SPY, and for the overall market, which is going to follow this, I'm anticipating a nice pump into FOMC. Historically, we could get rejected after FOMC comes and come down, or we might just keep pushing for the midterm rally, approach this trend line, and then get a big rejection from there. All right. So that's what I'm seeing in the markets. These are what my charts are telling me. If either one of those are the most likely possibilities, NIO will likely do one of these two things. But I mean, this one doesn't have to be like that bearish. It doesn't have to go down that low. This was just for an example, guys. We'd probably like trade sideways for longer after that. But I just wanted to make this clear. All right. I think NIO is going to get a pump for the next few days after FOMC. We might get a slight reversal. If not, if the market does not reverse, if there's no trend reversal, there might be a slight retracement. But then if we keep pumping, then NIO has the potential to keep going and going and going and hitting the 13s, then 14s, and maybe coming close to 15. But I'm going to be conservative and just talk about the 14 over the next 2 weeks. All right. So this is what I'm essentially seeing for NIO. We first have to see FOMC first to get confirmation. If the market keeps pumping after FOMC, it's very likely NIO is going to have over a week to continue pumping up, and I do believe NIO could. With that said and done, thank you all for listening. Please have an absolutely incredible rest of the day and weekend, and I'll see you guys in the next video. NIO to the moon because the long-term future is still incredibly bright, and peace out.